Greetings. My name is Tracy Fountain, and I am the founder and CEO of Flint Fire. And I'm so excited for the new year as we're going to branch off into a new venture where we're going to provide an opportunity for a lot of our small businesses and community organizations to advertise on the Flint Fire's platform. So just looking forward to doing that and want you to know that if you're interested in having that opportunity to please inbox me and so I can give you additional information about what we have planned for the new year. So without further ado, though, I want to share that I have a guest here, and he is attorney Michael Holland from the Holland's Bankruptcy Law Firm, which is located in the great city of Flint. And he is here to share some information with us about bankruptcy law and how that can help you during a trying time such as this that we're facing with the pandemic and some of our financial situations. So without further ado, Mr. Holland, welcome to Flint Fire. And we want to have a little moment to chat with you and have a good conversation. So can you tell me what it is about Flint that you love?
I love Flint, Tracy. Thank you for having me. Yep, I am attorney Michael Holland's Bankruptcy Law Office. And being born and raised in Flint, I have a lot of Flint pride, having gone to elementary, middle school, and high school, the greatest high school Flint has ever seen, which is Flint Academy Eagles.
Oh my
And
gosh.
if you know the school, then you know there's a lot of pride in the high school, and there's a lot of pride in Flint in general. So yeah.
I thought you were going to say Flint Northern, but since my brothers attended Flint Academy, I can take that as a possible second runner-up to Flint Northern. Welcome to this conversation. Thank you for being here to share with us some insight about bankruptcy. We know that there's a lot going on right now during the pandemic, and a lot of people are really looking financially at how to survive.
Yes.
So we want to know, do you have any advice to give regarding finances and bankruptcy law?
Yeah. So I just want to encourage everyone to really pay very close attention to their finances at this time. It's a tough time for everybody, but we're not all actually in the same boat. There are some people here who are essential workers, and they've been working the entire time throughout the pandemic, and their income level didn't change. And there are some who were laid off, and I have been on unemployment, and the up and down of having unemployment income may have jostled your finances, and it can put us in a tough position. So I just want to encourage everybody at this time to really pay close attention to your finances, particularly pay close attention to your shelter payments. We were in a shelter in place state at the earlier in this year, where we were required to be at home. And with the new political cycle, we just don't know if that'll come back. And so it's important that you actually have a shelter to stay home in the event that they shut us down. So your first priority, make sure you pay your rent, make sure you're paying your mortgage if you can, to make sure you have a shelter to be in. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great sound advice. Um, let's talk a little bit about bankruptcy. And let's talk about some of the myths that kind of prevent people from even considering bankruptcy as an option.
Yeah, so there are a lot of myths about bankruptcy. I hear a lot, people think that I filed bankruptcy once before, I can't file again, and that's not true. If you filed bankruptcy in the past, there are still options for you to file bankruptcy as early as 4 years, let's say if you filed a Chapter 7, if you need the help of the court again. Another thing I hear a lot is that, hey, I made a commitment to pay my bills, and I feel like I'm a bad person if I don't pay my bills.
Right.
And I understand that line of thought, but I would absolutely want everybody to understand that there comes a time where the mistakes we made in our 20s, sometimes we get into our 30s and 40s, we recognize we didn't do it right, and you do have the opportunity to start over and get a fresh start. And it's a right that Congress gave you, just like any other right you have to vote, a right to free speech, a right to bear arms. We would never let anybody take those rights. Well, Congress says you have a right to a good quality of life through the bankruptcy process. So just I would ask people to consider that if they feel like they're underwater and they can't get ahead, definitely consider bankruptcy as an option.
Okay, very good. I know a lot of people are afraid of bankruptcy because of what they believe will happen to their credit rating. Can you give us some information about that?
Yeah, a lot of times we think that if someone files bankruptcy, their credit is tarnished for the next 10 years. It's on your credit as a public record that you filed bankruptcy. But we really never talk about the mechanics of how that happens on your credit report. There is a specific way your credit report has to read when it comes to bankruptcy. And everything that falls under that bankruptcy has to be wiped off by law. So all of the reds, the yellows on your credit reports, the 120-day lates, the 60, 90-day late, all of that has to go away. And it
Oh, wow.
literally will just read bankruptcy. That's all that it can do. I know that for my clients, after you file bankruptcy and you get a discharge, I always call 60 days later and I say, hey, let's pull your credit report again and let's look at it one last time, because I want to make sure that it reads the way it should. And that's just something that we do at Holland's Bankruptcy to make sure that everybody comes out of it ahead.
Okay. I know oftentimes people feel ashamed to have to consider bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Um, and that prevents them from looking at that option. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. So again, it's all about quality of life. I mean, if you have a quality of life and such that if you're being garnished and they're taking $300, $600, $800 a month from your check, and you can't make the ends meet at that point, I would absolutely consider bankruptcy as an option and not feel slighted about that, because your quality of life ultimately is what's the most important thing. If you've been trying to buy a home and your credit has been keeping you down, you might want to consider starting over. And that at this time, at the shooting of this video, FHA underwriters say 2 years after bankruptcy, you can buy a house as if you have never gone through bankruptcy. And so these are things that if you were to talk to your lenders, they would tell you, absolutely, this is a way to get you to what you want to get you where you want to be. So I wouldn't feel bad necessarily about those things. Life happens. Sometimes we have illnesses and things that hit, and the medical bills are unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, Michigan, the roads, we get into car accidents and things, and the liability on some of the lawsuits that come from just one accident with a car is just unsurmountable. Thousands of dollars now someone owes because of just life happening. When life hits us like that, then you got to know that there is a pause button you can push, to start over. And you should absolutely, not feel bad about that. Life just happens, and good people find themselves in bad situations. And that's where ultimately where I'd like to come in and help people. So.
Very good. So yeah, I hear you talk about fresh start quite often in our conversation. So that's very exciting, because I believe there is not just the advantage of having a financial freedom from bankruptcy, that process, but also the mental and emotional freedom. So I know you've had experiences where people who were afraid initially, once they get into the process and see that you're there to actually help them, can you share some of the responses that people experience
Yeah.
behind that additional freedom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I offer a free consultation. Anybody wants to call me, they can reach out. My number, by the way, is 810-333-0064. And I offer just a free conversation. And in those conversations, there's trepidation in a lot of people's voice about what we're talking about. But by the end of that 30 minutes, they have a clear direction on what can happen and how it happens. Um, and that is really helpful to me. Before I did bankruptcy law, I did some criminal law, I did some family law. And one of the things I found out is that sometimes crimes are committed because of financial, shortfalls. Sometimes relationships and marriages and families don't work out because of financial shortfalls. And so I learned that if I can get some good financial information out there through these 30-minute phone calls that I have to help a family or to help somebody who doesn't see another way out, then that is absolutely helpful, not only to that family, but also to the community. And so I would just encourage anybody who's feeling some kind of trepidation about their situation, or even, kind of talking about bankruptcy, to give me a call. It's an easy conversation, and hopefully you'll come away with some solutions, bankruptcy or not, because sometimes there are credit solutions that are absolutely viable, so that you can have a path forward. And sometimes just knowing how to go forward is everything. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So there are, to my understanding, a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and a Chapter 13. Do you have time to share with us the difference or
Yeah.
give us some insight into that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Chapter 7 is the most common bankruptcy. We call it a fresh start. And the reason is because you literally get the opportunity to discharge all of your debts when you qualify for it. Even if you have a house or a car that you no longer want, you have the ability to give it back to the lender and say, I'm going to start over. All of your medical bills, loans, personal loans. The only thing that can't be discharged is student loans, taxes more than 3 years old. And if you have like child support or anything like that, those things can't be discharged. But other than that, credit cards and all of those things go away. Sometimes it's a great option where if you're in a lawsuit and you feel you're liable, bankruptcy even makes a lot of lawsuits go away. So it's a great option if that's someone's situation. And so it's just a fresh start. And you can also keep your assets. If you decide, I want to keep my house, I want to keep my car, you can absolutely do that in Chapter 7. It's just a wonderful tool, financial vehicle that people should know about. Now, Chapter 13 is for folks who don't income qualify for Chapter 7. If your income's just a little higher, we call it the Pay Earners Plan. And you can do a lot of things with Chapter 13. Chapter 13 is the plan that allows the person who is behind on their home. If you're behind, let's just throw a round number out there, $12,000 on your home, or $5,000 on your home, and you're looking at a foreclosure or something along those lines. Chapter 13 allows you to go to the creditor and say, for the next 36 months or the next 60 months, however long it takes, I'm going to get caught up in small bite-sized increments. And the creditor, they have to take that plan when the trustee agrees. Creditors don't necessarily listen to us when we come and say, hey, I need help. Chapter 13 makes them, it requires that they listen and do what we got to do to make sure we keep our homes. So, yeah.
Okay, good information. I also have the question of how often can you file bankruptcy?
Yeah. So if someone filed bankruptcy as early as 4 years ago, they can absolutely file. And that's for the person who filed Chapter 7 4 years ago. While you have to wait 8 years to file another Chapter 7, you can absolutely file a Chapter 13, which I talked about, that does some amazing things 4 years later. And if you filed a Chapter 13, you can also file another Chapter 13 as well, or another Chapter 7 in the same time. So, yeah.
Okay, so this is all very good information. Is there anything in addition that you think is just something that you would like to highlight for our Flint fam so that they are well informed about finances and bankruptcy law?
Yeah, again, I just want to encourage everybody to, if you find yourself in a situation where you are trying to, let's say, reach into your 401k or your IRA because you want to pay creditors, please don't do that. That's just something I advise against. There are federal laws against creditors reaching into your retirement, but that you go in and give it to them, and you just don't want to do that. If you're in a position where you're not paying your car insurance because you're paying bills, please give me a call. I mean, one of the things you want to always have is car insurance, especially in the winter months coming up here. You just don't want to be in a situation where you're not paying that bill. And if you own a home and you took the forbearance, which is something that the CARES Act allowed, it basically just pushed the pause button on your shelter payment. At some point here, when the new political cycle happens, they're going to be requesting these monies back. And there's a lot of communication right now about the loans that will come due. You just want to make sure that you ask your lender, which loan option allows you to pay the arrears or the monies you owe on your home before the forbearance, that allows you to pay that on the back end of your loan. And so you're going to have a lot of conversation about that. And that's going to allow you to keep your home, continue to pay your payment, and just extend what you are normally paying at the end of the loan. And that is a wonderful option. And there's going to be a lot of options for homeowners that are behind. And I can go into a lot more detail. If anybody's in that situation, please give me a call. We can have that conversation. So, yeah. So that's my advice.
That's your advice.
Yeah.
My last question is that is you are providing services in the city of Flint, and you really could be anywhere. Tell me why you're here. why you're in Flint, why you're serving this community.
Yeah, so I alluded to it earlier, and that I did some family law and I did some criminal law, and both of those touched my life personally. Either myself sitting in a courtroom in front of a judge, being represented by an attorney as a young man, and not really feeling like I had a voice, and that attorney really knew me and really knew how to represent me. And I remember the feeling of sitting in that courtroom, and I had so much at stake. And a lot of people probably can relate to being in a courtroom and not necessarily feeling like you had a voice. And so when I had the opportunity to go to law school and get my degree, I jumped out there and started to represent people who did not have that voice in criminal law and in family law. And these are both two areas, again, that I'm personally intimate with in my own personal life. Well, another thing that I'm very, very, very understand is not having the money to make the ends meet, not being able to pay rent or live check to check. I've been in these situations before, not being able to provide for my family like I want to, having kids, being a single parent. I understand that all too well. And if I had this information that I'm trying to get out to the community now, I feel like I would have had more hope and more of a desire to move forward. And so this Flint community that I love and that I know so well, I'm just really, really wanting to catch anybody who felt the way I felt, whether they were in the criminal system, whether they were in a marriage and divorce situation, as a single parent. If you had the financial information, it may have helped save that marriage, or it may have helped you to know there's other options than maybe doing criminal activity. And that's ultimately why I'm here, and ultimately why I'm trying to give back in the way I am, is to make a difference in that regard. Finances play a big part into a lot of our life. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So I just want to say I thank you for joining us today and sharing all of this wonderful information. It is very helpful at this time. And also thanking you for, just want to thank you for sticking with Flint to see us through, right? Because you will definitely be part of the difference. You make the difference, and everyone else who is committing to Flint and trying to ensure that we move Flint forward. So thank you for visiting, and can you please share with us your information, your contact information once again, so that Flint fam, they will know how to get in touch with you in the case that they have issues with finances and need bankruptcy help.
Yeah. So again, my name is Attorney Michael Hollands, and I can be reached locally at 810-333-0064. Have a toll-free number, easy to remember, 844-2-debt-free. And you can find me on my website, hollandsbankruptcy.com.
Thank you, Attorney Holland.
Thank
I
you.
just want to let you know that you are Flint Fire, and we'll be looking forward to seeing the great work that you do in our community.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me, Tracy.
Thank you.